How's everybody doing tonight? Great. Welcome to the Joliet Area Historical Museum. This is probably, I'll see a lot of hands here, but we have some members in the room tonight, museum members. Great. I knew this was a member crowd. Well, I want to thank you guys for your membership and understand the perk of that membership. So if you're not a member, we certainly would encourage you to become one. You have a possibility to win a membership tonight. We're going to be giving a couple of Dr. Sterling's books away at the end of the talk here, and those will include free memberships. But again, it's cool stuff like this that is free with your membership. So if you're not, we certainly hope you consider it. And with that, a couple just quick housekeeping thank yous. First, I want to thank Candace Quinterly for flexibility, our new education director. Candace has been with us for about a year now. If you've not met her, please feel free to introduce yourself. She was very flexible, got this all set up at not very last minute, but last minute enough to make it interesting. So thank you, Candace. And finally, from our board of directors, we have Lynn Lichtenauer. Lynn, if you could give the folks a wave. Represent our board tonight. We appreciate it. And several volunteers in the room. I know I saw Mary and got Bill back there and Marilyn. So thank you guys as always for all the work you do volunteering for us. Feel free to give everybody a wave. You're so modest. Anyway, there you go. Finally, we got Elaine too. Thank you, Elaine, for sticking around tonight. And everyone knows Elaine, right? There we go. That's right. Okay, so with that, how do you give an introduction to a man who needs no introduction? You do it very briefly. This is a very limited engagement. This has not been shown publicly outside of the JTHS reunion, so enjoy this. I'm certainly looking forward to it. Without further ado, you know who he is, Dr. Bob Sterling. Take it away.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back in Joliet. My wife, Joanne, right there. We arrived just a couple days ago, and we're staying till Friday. We've been in Colorado now for 8 years, and it's beginning to feel comfortable, but it's not home. This is home, and it's always great to come back home. We're having a great time visiting family and friends. A lot of friends right there, sitting with my wife, church friends, neighborhood friends, and so it's a real special treat for us to be here, and for me, a very special treat to visit the museum. I have a lot of great memories of the museum, especially being part of the teams that developed both the main exhibition gallery as well as the Apollo Hobart exhibit. And those were really very exciting and creative years in my life, and so the museum really holds a very special place in my memories and in my heart. I found the special exhibit on the tornado of 1990 very interesting. I'll never forget my rather strange experience. That day I was in Dr. Morimoto's office on Hamas Avenue getting my annual eye exam, and I just settled into the examining chair, and the person examining my eyes darkened the room, pulled up a little stool facing me, and he said, well, I'm going to put this over one eye and project, we'll start with the largest letters. Look at the far wall and tell me what letter you see. And I squinted and squinted, and I couldn't see anything. And I said, well, I don't see any letters. And he said, yeah, right. Tell me which letter you see. And I said, really, I don't see any letters. And he swung around on his stool and looked at the wall. He said, my God, there's nothing there. And at that very moment, we heard this, this sound of someone running down the hallway, shouting, take cover, there's been a tornado. Everyone take cover. And so we left this examining room and kind of took cover together. And, as it turned out, the very moment that he asked me to, look at that letter, the power went out in the building. And I'll never forget that eye exam. And now out in Colorado, whenever I have my eyes examined, I sit in that chair and I have this flashback to 1990 and the tornado. Of course, I didn't stay there very long taking cover. I was anxious to get home. We didn't live that far away. We lived in Lake Lawn subdivision near Midland and Glenwood. And so when I got home, our neighborhood was very windblown, but we hadn't suffered any of the severe damage, for which I was very, very grateful. Well, I was invited to do a program not on the tornado of 1990, but rather on cruising the loop in the 1950s and 60s. Today's program is intended to be interesting as well as informative. I'm glad you decided to go cruising with me and a couple of my friends, Bill and Jack. As we cruise the loop, there'll be some friendly banter in the car as these high school friends kind of needle each other by interjecting comments during the narration. So I hope you enjoy the ride. Hey Ma, Bob Sterling's on the phone. He wants to know if I can go cruising with him and Jack. Can I go? Well, okay, but no drag racing. Don't worry, Sterling usually has his grandma's car. We won't be racing anyone unless it's Fred Flintstone. Good. Remember, Bill, your curfew is 10 o'clock. But they get to stay out till 10:30. I don't care. Be home by 10 or don't go. Oh, all right. And I don't like you hanging around with that Sterling kid. Why can't you find some decent friends? Oh, Ma. Well, how many of you went cruising in the 50s and 60s? Oh, man, a whole room full of cruisers. That's great. Well, although the route may have varied, it usually included Silver Frost on the far east side of town on Cass Street. And then oftentimes we would work our way up to McDonald's on West Jefferson. So the program tonight will take us cruising in Joliet. We'll go past some very familiar places during the 1950s and 60s. So come on, hop in, let's go. Speaking of hop, we'll start at Silver Frost here and check out the car hops. Nothing better than a cold root beer served by a hot car hop. As usual, there are a few gearheads hanging around Silver Frost with their souped-up rods, loud pipes looking for a race. Whoa, check out the classy chassis on our car hop, says Jack. I'd sure like to ask her out. In your dreams, Bill replies sarcastically. She wouldn't give you the time of day. But I will. It's half past hopeless. I don't think she dates outside her species. Come on, Sterling, let's cut out of here. Goose it, man, lay some rubber. Geez, is that all your granny mobiles got? Pipe down, nosebleed. Although Silver Frost was the place to see and be seen, you remember the Dairy Topper across the street. And the A&W, a couple of blocks east on Cass Street. The owners, Pete and Ice, anyone remember Pete and Ice? Are serving up a couple of cold ones here. The A&W is a good place for root beer, but not a real popular hangout, at least that I was aware of. Well, it's still early. Let's head out East Cass Street and scope out Highland Park. Then we'll come back downtown, we'll cruise the loop, and finally catch the action out on West Jefferson at McDonald's. As we head east on Cass Street towards the park, we pass Oakwood Cemetery, the final resting place of more than 12,000 Joliet residents. The large monuments in Oakwood, as well as the small headstones, mark the graves of countless people with interesting life stories. Some stories with many chapters, other short stories of people who died while they were still very young. Hey, look, shouts Bill, there's a statue of a little girl. I wonder what that's all about. That's where Emma Oxner is buried. She was 10 years old when she was accidentally electrocuted while watching a funeral procession. Sterling, how did you know that? Do you hang out in cemeteries? Chides Jack. No, but I do hang around with a couple of lifeless friends. Actually, both my grandfather here and my father were sextons of Oakwood Cemetery. In fact, my grandfather owned Sterling's Florist across the street from the cemetery on the corner of Cass and Walnut. Very interesting, says Bill, but who cares? Step on it. Let's get out to the park. Now be honest, who remembers driving out to Highland Park and then cruising through the one-way drive with your main squeeze? Maybe you stopped at the Flowing Well for a drink of water and then bottomed out when you jumped the hump, that big bump in the road where it went over a small stream, and then finally found a place to park along Hickory Creek. Here you could watch the submarine races. If you're wondering how I know about all this, it's based strictly on hearsay and, of course, some extensive research. Speaking of submarine races, this is what I'm talking about. A couple of lovers caught in a lip lock, maybe studying for an anatomy test. By the way, remember when cars had bench seats in the front? A whole lot easier to make out and steam up the windows. Of course, there was always back seat bingo as an option. Here's another place where car windows could get pretty steamy, so I've been told. At drive-in theaters like Hilltop on Route 6, or the Bel Air Theater in Romeoville. Can you still hear the gravel crunching under the tires as you drove around looking for the perfect place to park? By the way, did any of you ever stow away in the trunk? Trying to save a buck or two? Huh? Admit it, admit it. I personally never did hide in the trunk. I was afraid of getting busted, and I don't look very good in stripes. My friend Bill always wanted to live in a gated community with lots of bars. I don't know if he wound up there or not. Well, these drive-in theaters were often called passion pits, where raging hormones sometimes went wild. Nice girls were warned by their parents to stay away from such places. But from my exhaustive research, I understand that some shady ladies didn't listen. Admit it, who got their first hickey at Hilltop? Ooh, huh? Well, before we get hopelessly lost in young love, let's head back downtown on Cass Street, back past Silverfrost to the intersection of Cass and Collins Streets. You might remember Seltzer Drugs, which is where? My pointer doesn't want to point. On the corner there, and kind of across the street was Greg Motors on the southeast corner. Who remembers the unique feature of Greg Motors' window display? Ah, yes, I see some. There was a very large turntable, and it gave passersby a 360-degree view of a shiny new Lincoln or Mercury. And if you were like me, you'd kind of drooled a little when you saw those Mercury sitting there. Of course, car dealers in the 50s and 60s used a lot of gimmicks and slogans to attract attention to potential buyers, but this is what Greg did. Across the street, near the southwest corner of Cass and Collins, who remembers a cuckoo clock? Yeah. Did you ever get an orange-flavored milkshake at the cuckoo clock? It's pretty good, pretty good. Well, as we drive west on Cass, headed for town, we see the high school on the left, and we begin talking about school stuff. Jack comments that someone in his homeroom had been to see the dean twice in 1 week. Anyone remember him?
Yeah, Dean Haynes.
Dean Haynes, absolutely. Must have been a real life-changing experience to have been in his office twice in a week. Bill wonders whether the dean was the prude who picked out the gym suits for girls. He complained, "You can barely see their bare knees." And these are two Speedway stars in action. Well, I wonder why the dean doesn't crack down on the school nurse. Jack asks, "I heard she has a real taste for the rubbing alcohol in her cabinet." Come on, enough of these rumors. Let's keep moving. Continuing west on Cass Street, we pass a couple of barber shops. Some of you guys probably remember from the 50s and 60s. Lou Rini's barber shop and Fazio's barber shop. Anyone ever? I went to Lou. Anyone go to these? Okay. The two most popular hairstyles back then were the flat top and the ducktail, or the DA. Unfortunately, many of us today don't have enough hair for either one. Maybe a BA if we're bare in the back, huh? I guess some of us have gone from long hair to longing for hair. Longer hairstyles in the 1950s were popularized by this barber, who moonlighted as a singer. Or was he a singer who moonlighted as a barber? I don't know. Let's keep driving. As we approach the main business district, we're reminded that downtown Joliet has everything. And it did. I'm not sure what the sign says today. At the corner of Cass and Scott Streets, we start running into more traffic. Downtown Joliet was a busy place when we cruised the loop in the 50s and 60s. As you know, Cass Street here was part of Route 30, also known as the Lincoln Highway. And so a lot of the businesses you see here catered to interstate travelers. If we look to the left on the southeast corner of Cass and Scott, we'll see Fred Emick Ford. "Hey, Sterling, those T-Birds on the lot are really sweet rides. See if your granny will buy that red one so we can cruise in style." Well, inside the Ford dealership, there was no turntable to attract attention, but as a sales gimmick, someone thought it would be a great idea and a good attention grabber if all the salesmen piled into a new car and took a picture for the Herald News. Okay, who did it? Whoa, let me out of here. That was nasty. A little high school humor, sorry. Down the street from Fred Emick's was the post office on the northeast corner of Scott and Clinton. And then kind of kitty corner across the street was the Louis Joliet Hotel. Well, let's continue west on Cass, and here we are at Cass and Chicago at the intersection. This was, of course, the crossroads of Mid-America. At this point, Cass Street, looking straight ahead, was part of the Lincoln Highway, and the cross street, Chicago Street, was part of Route 66. So we have the Lincoln Highway and Route 66 intersecting here. So this was a very busy intersection for both local shoppers as well as interstate travelers. As we wait to turn right, we look ahead, and there's a very familiar store on the corner of Cass and Ottawa. If you wanted to buy a really nice outfit and had the money to spend, Al Baskin's was a place to go. Who remembers the specialty shops in Al Baskin? The Loft is one. California Room. My Sister's Closet, was that one of them? University Shop. Well, let's take a right on Chicago Street. We'll go north on Chicago Street after the parade passes. But off in the distance, we can see Woolworths, Penny sign, and way down there is Sears. The store on the left also catches our eye, and that's the White Store. What do you remember about the White Store? Well, maybe you bought some Levi's there, creaky wooden floors, maybe the smell of leather if you got your shoes repaired in the basement. I won't mention any names here today, but if you needed a new sole, you could go to the White Store in the basement. Or if you had a loose tongue that needed to be fixed, you could go to the White Store, the basement. Across the street was the A&P and the Orpheum. For almost 50 years, the Orpheum entertained moviegoers in this venue. Here, the A&P advertised weekly specials by taping these big signs in the window. I think you could get 3 pounds of coffee for $1.65. I wonder what K-cups cost back then. If you shopped at Woolworths or Penny's, where were you likely to park? On the rooftop parking. In some ways, the forerunner of Joliet's parking decks today, I guess. Speaking of parking, how did Sears handle their parking? During the busy hours, remember there was an attendant, some guy in a window, perched in one of the upper windows, directing drivers to empty parking places? You guys in the Granny Mobile, go down aisle 3 to the space on the left. No, aisle 3. Can't you guys read? What else do you remember about Sears? Maybe the candy counter or all the tools. My most vivid memory, I think, is that my uncle worked in the shoe department. And I recall going in there quite often to say hi to him. And I never missed a chance to stick my feet in those shoe-fitting X-ray machine. Watch the bones in my toes wiggle, you know? Remember those machines? At the time, I didn't make the connection between these X-ray machines and the fact that my feet glowed in the dark. I think these machines were later banned in the 1960s. On the corner of Chicago and Jackson Street, Bill Jacobs sold Chevrolets. New cars and salesmen are seen lined up here. You remember they always had promotions going on. 500 is on the sign on the door. 500 is the tune for May and June. Right. Hey, you should be up here. Come on. Another slogan displayed in the window says, "You can't top our deal. A new hat if you can." Bill Jacobs, the Chevrolet man. Remember that? Huh? Sorry if I offended you with that feeble attempt at singing. Well, someone at Jacobs also decided they could sell more cars if salesmen wore Bermuda shorts accented by these weird socks and assorted knobby knees. Like I said, they had a lot of gimmicks back then to sell cars. For car dealers, New Car Night was probably the busiest night of the year, the night when they unveiled the new models for the coming year. Well, let's head back on Chicago Street toward the main business district. On the southwest corner of Chicago and Cass Streets stood this familiar building, occupied by Goldblatt's when the picture was taken in 1956, and then a few years later, what store moved in? You people are just too good. I'm going to sit down and just show these pictures. What am I talking for? Okay. What do you remember about Klein's and Goldblatt's? The elevator, absolutely. Good grief, you're great. Remember the white-gloved operator who manually opened and closed those collapsible gates, calling out the floors by their descriptive names? 3rd floor, ladies' lingerie. Speaking of ladies' intimate apparel, you're a step ahead of me again. Global warming deniers fail to consider that the changes in women's underwear over the years prove beyond a doubt that global warming is real. Check it out. How else can you explain this evolution from bloomers to those skimpy things on the right? It's got to be getting a lot warmer. Hey, let's keep going, huh? Bill's ma wants him home by 10. At the intersection of Chicago and Clinton Streets, the huge sign of the Rialto more or less dominates the east side of the street. And then, of course, across the street is Grant's. Careful shoppers could compare prices at such other nearby stores as Osco's and Woolworth's and Kresge's. The downtown Joliet certainly had a lot of these 5 and 10 cent stores, or dime stores as we called them. Remember, a lot of these stores also had lunch counters, or a soda fountain, or at least sold popcorn. If we turn around and look back the other way, across from Grant's we see Neisner's and Walgreens. As I recall, you could watch pizza being made in the window at Neisner's. By the way, what's conspicuously missing from the corner here by Grant's? Buses, absolutely. A line of city buses. How many times did you stand on this corner waiting for a bus? I know I did, yeah. Someone said every day. Well, someone in the car spots 217 Clinton Street, and the conversation turns to the Selective Service and the need to register for the draft. Anyone go there? Or register some other which way? Yeah. How many veterans do we have in the crowd? Well, great. Thank you for your service. Fantastic. Hey, look. There's the library down there on Ottawa Street. Hey, maybe we could stop by and check out a book. Man, I can't count the hours I spent studying in that library, Bill says. What, you can't count to 5? Replies Jack. Pipe down, you've never been in the place. Hey, who's the dude on the statue? I don't know, looks like Davy Crockett. Maybe Daniel Boone. No, hey, wait. I think it says Louis Joliet. Hey, yeah, that's probably it. Meanwhile, back on Chicago Street, across from Grant's, we cruise past Ford Hopkins, Lewis Brothers, Harvey Brothers, and Block and Cools. All familiar names from the past. Hey, Sterling, pull over. Check out the chicks in the window at Block and Cools. Those aren't chicks, genius. They're mannequins. Besides, I can't pull over. All your horny friends are parked in front of the place. Well, at least slow down, Bill shouts. I can't. There's a cop behind me. We got to keep moving. Do you remember the controversy that this window caused? There was quite a controversy over, this particular window display in the 1950s. It was too revealing. Well, next door to Block and Cools was the Rialto, the jewel of Joliet. From the lobby entrance to the rotunda and the auditorium, there was just, and still is, I haven't been there in a while, but I imagine there still is, just an aura of plush elegance and ornate style in the Rialto. Even, I think, back then, high school cruisers, appreciated, the huge columns and the chandeliers and the vaulted ceiling and the flowing draperies and the grand stairway. I mean, it's just a very, very beautiful place. Whether watching a movie on the big screen or maybe live entertainment on the stage, the Rialto holds a very special place in the memories of people who grew up in Joliet, including Joanne and me. Well, speaking of high school age cruisers, This is the balcony. What more can I say? Continuing on, we see the Fannie Mae Candy Store on the southwest corner of Chicago and Van Buren Streets. A real downtown sweet spot. Remember the lines just before Valentine's Day and Easter here at the candy store? They're Easter eggs with a chocolate filling. Those are Joanne's favorites. She's sitting there nodding her head. Other businesses on the south side of Van Buren were the Mode Theater and Bob Musser's Sports Shop. Within a one-block area, there were three theaters: the Mode, the Rialto, and the Princess. Absolutely. Of course, the Princess and the Mode weren't nearly as beautiful and plush as the Rialto, but they did have much stickier floors. There is that about them. One of my favorite stores downtown was Bob Musser's Sports Shop. Over the years, I spent a lot of time and money at Musser's getting just the right pair of shoes and other sports equipment. And farther down on the corner of Van Buren and Ottawa Streets, we see Montgomery Ward's. Hey, there's Monkey Ward's, Jack says. My aunt works there. Monkey Ward's, huh? Looking east on Van Buren from Chicago Street intersection, we see the Herald News Building. It's on the corner of Van Buren and Scott Streets. When I was a paper boy, says Bill, I went there on Saturday mornings to turn in the money I collected on my paper route. Any paper boys in here? Is that where you went to? Yeah. Saturday morning. On that left-hand side. I was a paper boy too. That's where I turned in my money. I had a trailer park on my route, and every now and then it would be collection day, and I get there and there was just an empty place where the trailer used to be. I got stung more times. Oh well. This is another view of the Herald News on the left. Of course, St. Anthony's Catholic Church on the right. But look at the traffic. The intersection of Van Buren and Scott Streets. Well, back on Chicago Street, we approach the Jefferson Street intersection and look to the left. So we're at Jefferson and Chicago looking left, and way down past the viaduct, we see the high school, way off in the distance. And there are two signs on the left that identify businesses that were very popular if you had a taste for hot dogs and chocolate malts: Coney Island and the Sweet Shop. I'm sure many of you have tasty memories of those places. If we look at the same block from the other direction, now we see Coney Island and the Sweet Shop on the right, and even farther down you can see Jet's Hamburgers on the right-hand side. Remember the greasy goodness of Jet's? Huh? I think they were the forerunner of White Castle sliders. Well, across the street from these fast food places was the Woodruff Hotel with its old English-style architecture. The Woodruff was a landmark downtown on the southwest corner of Jefferson and Scott Streets. A more formal dining experience was enjoyed by people who ate at the restaurant in the Woodruff. White linen tablecloths, flowers on the tables, a lot of atmosphere as well as fine food. Well, carloads of young people cruised these downtown streets during the 50s and 60s, but so did floats in parades. They also cruised the loop. But turning the corner here on Jefferson Street by the courthouse is the Joliet Arsenal float that featured large missiles. Pointed right at the courthouse. Watch out for that bump. Don't jar the missiles. Holy crap! Can you believe it? One whole side of the courthouse is gone. Except the missiles didn't take it down. Will County board members decided to knock it down in 1969 and replace it with this building. The foreman on this job kept looking at the building plans upside down and built a new courthouse topside down. I've heard some folks say it might be time for another missile mishap. Well, remember when we cruised the loop in the 1950s and 60s, we drove past this courthouse, the one that actually looked like a courthouse. Driving west on Jefferson, we passed the Boston store, one of Joliet's finest department stores. It offered a wide selection of men, women's, children's clothing, as well as furniture and groceries. I'm sure many of you have memories of the Boston store. Did anyone work there? Okay. Anyone wish you would have? No. Well, looking down Ottawa Street, we see Barrett's Hardware. That was the oldest business in Joliet at the time. We can also see the religious shop, which was next door to another kind of redemption center, the S&H Green Stamp store, where green stamps could be redeemed for a variety of items. Barrett's Hardware was a very unique and memorable store. If you needed an odd bolt or screw or even a whatchamacallit or a thingamajig, if you went to Barrett's, chances were pretty good that you could find one of those in those small wooden drawers, on that one wall. They also had a sports department. I even shopped there for sporting stuff. Remember the squeaky wooden floors there as well as the white store? And then that open stairway that went down to, was it household goods on the lower floor? Well, cruising the loop was so popular that even stores started doing it. This is Lieberman's jewelry store cruising very slowly from one side of the street to the other. Remember when they moved Lieberman's? It drew quite a crowd of curious spectators. However, when a senator from Massachusetts cruised the loop in 1960, that drew the biggest cruising crowd ever. Of course, Senator Kennedy won the election in November of 1960 and served as the 35th president of the United States until his tragic death in 1963. Were any of you down there to see Kennedy? Whoa, look at the picture. Well, I don't know, I should have made that bigger so you could find yourself. You see yourself there? You're in the car with him, huh? Well, maybe not. Come on, Sterling, let's get out of town. Let's catch the action at McDonald's, says Jack. Oh no, the bridge is up. Hey, let's jump it. Yeah, genius, it's wide open. What could possibly go wrong? Did any of you ever ride the bridge up? Any of you ever do that? You knew people maybe that did that. Or did any of you ever jump the bridge just as it was starting to open, like the Dukes of Hazzard? I've heard people talk about that, but I don't know if that was just an urban legend or whether that actually happened. Did anyone ever know anyone that jumped the bridge just as it was opening? No, but I've heard people talk about it, haven't you? Maybe challenging someone to do it, like in a granny mobile. I have a feeling that for many of us, just walking across the bridge was scary enough, especially if there were any loose boards and you could see that murky water swirling around down there. That could be a little scary. Hey, the gates are going up. Let's go. Pop the clutch, Sterling. This car is really sad, mutters Jack as we head up Jefferson Street. We pass Catholic High on the left, and then, hey, look, down there on Broadway Street, says Bill, there's St. Joe's Hospital where I was born. When was that, mocks Bill? About 12 years ago? Yeah, right, wise guy. Just past Center Street, we go past Weber's, a popular place during the summer to get an ice cream cone. I'll have 2 scoops of black cherry, please. At Jefferson and Rayner, aerial view, we drive past the Lee Theater. Now, I personally don't remember much about the Lee, but I think if you lived on the west side, you probably have memories of the Lee Theater. As we continue west on Jefferson, we pass the Skylark at Wheeler. Breakfast at the Skylark, is that part of your memory bank? Mine too. Hey, Sterling, watch your speed along here. I'm not chipping in on any tickets. Yeah, I've heard this stretch of Jefferson is checked by radar. Wait a minute, isn't that Radar O'Reilly, the guy on MASH? You know, the cops are trying to catch cars drag racing along here, says Bill. But I think we're safe in the granny car, unless Sterling gets a ticket for holding up traffic. Well, we can see the golden arches in the distance when we reach the intersection of Jefferson and Midland, the location of a very popular grocery store. Honey Otis. And then back a block up there is Pershing School. What do you remember about Honey Otis? Produce. Fresh produce and quality meats. The store actually got its start as a roadside fruit and vegetable stand, and then carried its tradition over the years of offering customers a great selection of fresh produce and good meat. Well, here we are. We're at McDonald's. Just as Silverfrost was a required stop on the east side of town, McDonald's was an essential stop on the west side. The red and white drive-in with the golden arches, it came to town in 1956, around Christmas of 1956, and immediately enjoyed success. If you had 45 cents in your pocket, or in your friend's pocket, you could get a full all-America meal. A burger, a shake, and fries. Unlike Silverfrost with its car hops, though, you had to get out of the car and go up to the window and order. During the 1950s and 60s, other fast food places came to town. Remember Dog and Suds, across from McDonald's and up about 2 blocks? And on the east side of town, Burger Chef also sold burgers for 15 cents. Out on Plainfield Road, Otto's Root Beer was another drive-in option, as was the Ace on Plainfield Road. And farther out Plainfield Road, by the intersection of Caton Farm Road, was the Hi-Ho, the Hi-Ho the Dario. Oh no, here come the cops, clearing out McDonald's parking lot. Let's head west on Jefferson out towards the stadium. Hey, take it easy, we're not chipping in on any tickets, shouts Jack. Old A.J. Foyt here, he couldn't lay any rubber at Silverfrost, but he can spin a little loose gravel here at McDonald's parking lot. Very impressive. Give me a break and give me a few bucks. I've got to stop at Rooney's Corner and get some gas. Are you kidding? They want 29 cents a gallon. Hey, we got no choice. It's the only station around. Rooney's a crook, says Bill. 29 cents a gallon. Look, he also charges a quarter for a pack of Luckies. I think I'll have him check the oil when he comes out to pump the gas. Hey, we ain't paying for oil too, protest Chuck. Come on, guys. I'm tapped out. But I'm good for it. My boat will come in. Sterling, your boat is the Titanic. I've got a sinking feeling you'll never pay us back. When this aerial photo was taken, about 1960, many people referred to Jefferson Street as Troy Road, and Larkin Avenue, which is heading up north there. This is Jefferson and Larkin, and Rooney's Corner. My pointer still doesn't want to point. Wait. There it is. There's Rooney's Corner, if you had a steady hand. And Larkin Avenue was referred to as the Outer Belt, the Outer Belt. Well, we're looking north on Larkin. You can see Dog and Suds barely on the right hand, the lower right. And way up north on Larkin, at Plainfield Road, was the new Hillcrest Shopping Center that was built in 1959. The new shopping center featured 29 businesses, including such stores as Goldblatt's, the Boston Store, Kresge's, Richmond Brothers, to name just a few. Promoters advertised free parking. Didn't get that downtown. Free parking, shop here, not downtown. For 2,000 cars with an all-weather canopy. The new mall even featured a grocery store, The Jewel. Since the store was not adjacent to the parking lot, but rather was one of the inner businesses, wheeling groceries from the store out to the parking lot would have been a problem. So how did they resolve that? You people are so good. A unique system. It was called a cartveyor system. Remember their underground cart system? After you checked out, you went out to the lot, got your car, pulled it up to the curb, and your basket of groceries was pulled through this tunnel, came up out near curbside. And an attendant loaded your groceries in the car, and the carts went back through the tunnel back to the store. Well, first there was Hillcrest in 1959. Then in 1975 came Jefferson Square, and then in 78 came the Louis Joliet Mall, and each one of these new shopping centers or malls on the far west side of Joliet, I think, caused downtown Joliet to go downhill a little more. As you know, Weber Road extends north of Larkin at Hillcrest. This is what Weber Road looked like back then in 1959. Well, let's head back on Jefferson. We're going to take another quick look. On the lower left, you can see what new subdivision? That's Marycrest. And just kind of in front of that is Marycrest Shopping Center. And to kind of the right of the shopping center is a familiar landmark, Al's Restaurant. Another favorite spot was D'Amico's Restaurant across the way. However, if you wanted a good poor boy, you had to go to Marishka's. Joanne and I and some of our friends here were there yesterday. I can still taste those poor boys. I haven't personally had one for several years, but I can still taste those poor boys. They do stay with you a long time, don't they? The boomerang logo on their sign meant they wanted you to keep coming back. Do you remember any of the stores in Marycrest? Yeah. How about the Piggly Wiggly? Woolworths? And what store anchored the other end? Tops. You people are just too good. One of the few businesses west of Marycrest back then was the New Lumber Company. In this aerial view of the New Lumber Company, you can see part of Marycrest there in the background. Well, we finally reached the stadium, which was built in 1951. Back in the 50s and early 60s, that was really way out in the boonies. Far west side of, look at the small trees on the golf course. Huh? You like to play Inwood then rather than now, huh? Well, I graduated from JT in 1960, and we had a lot of good times here at the stadium. especially since our football team went undefeated all 4 years that I was in high school. What's that? You don't believe it? Hey, it's 55 years ago. My memory's beginning to fail. That's how I remember it. Undefeated 4 years. That's based on my memory, not any careful research. Of course, the cheerleaders kept the crowd involved. Speaking of the team, oh, Friday Night Lights, huh? Whoa! Go, go, go! Oh! Oh, we got a good punt return coming here. Down the sideline. Come on, pick up your blockers. Pick up your blockers. Oh, not bad, not bad. Let's try a pass. Oop, fake. There it is. Oh, go all the way, all the way, all the way. Hey, a touchdown. Okay. Well, a lot of people, when the team wasn't doing so well, and I guess we really didn't sometimes, other people went to watch the band. These are some of the section leaders back when I was in high school. And here's a glimpse of the band taking the field. If you'd like to break into song, Joliet high. Are there any singers here? I tried it once earlier. Right up there. Homecoming was always a very special time of year. I remember when the Queen was announced in 1959. Who was that? Penny Wills. She was surprised and thrilled, and the other candidates pretended to be happy for her. And of course, the Queen and her court were introduced at halftime, walking through the Sabre Arch. Penny, what glamour. What style? What grace? Oh, watch out. Whoa, 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 whoa. Well, forget the grace part. 2 out of 3 is not bad. Watch out, those risers are very slippery. Penny walked a whole lot better than she climbed. Well, there really wasn't much around the stadium back then when we cruised in the 50s and 60s. Remember Inwood? Inwood Pool nearby was very popular on hot summer days. There were a few daring divers who thrilled swimmers at Inwood, floating through the air like a graceful bird. Looks like a perfect 10. How do they do that? Meanwhile, over at Knoll, you can clearly see some east side swimmers also perfected the fine art of diving. Another perfect 10. I tried that once, says Jack. I dang near split a gut. My belly hurt for a week. Well, let's keep going west out towards the airport. As we do, we pass Essington Road. Like Weber Road, nothing more than a gravel lane. Here we are. This is where our cruising will end. We've reached the new interchange at I-55 and West Jefferson, or Route 52. In this aerial view, we're looking back east on Jefferson toward the airport on the right there and the stadium. When this photo was taken in 1959, things were pretty dead on West Jefferson, but all you can see is a cemetery and maybe a gas station in there. Hey, what time is it? Shouts Bill. Oh no, I was supposed to be home 20 minutes ago. My ma's going to kill me. I'll be grounded for sure. Hey, don't worry, dude. If you can't come with us next time, we'll take some pictures. We'll show them to you later. Thanks a lot. Pictures of cruising? Now that sounds really exciting. Sterling, I think my mom might be right about you. Well, those were the days, my friends. We thought they'd never end. You might have thought this program would never end, but here we are. All these years later, thanks for cruising with me. I hope the program has triggered some fond memories of good times back in the 1950s and 60s when you cruised the loop. Make it easy,
Glad
make
to
it
hang out
easy.
with you. Does anyone have any questions in all seriousness for Bob? Any comments, any memories you'd like to share? We can turn it
Any
over.
cruising memories? There are some cruisers here. What are some of your favorite memories? What kind of car did you drive?
Before Grants, it was Duckers.
Ducker's Corner, absolutely. Ducker's. Yeah, remember how they collected the money? Yeah. Now, didn't one store have kind of a pneumatic tube, and another one did it on a kind of a, yeah, what was it, a pulley type thing? The pneumatic thing, kind of sucked it along. Yeah. What car did you drive cruising? You didn't have a Granny Mobile. You had more money than me. You didn't borrow your grandma's car.
68 396 Chevelle.
A what?
68 396 Chevelle.
A 68 Chevelle. Oh, I hate you. No, I'm envious. All right, a Chevelle 60. Oh, man, that's great.
Had to get rid of it because gas went up to about 50 cents a gallon or something.
Gas went up to 50 cents a gallon. Yeah, back in the back, Lynn.
Kim's Clock, it's now in front of the Union Station, but it was on Chicago Street. Kim's Jewelry Store, and up above was the Joliet Conservatory of Music.
Yeah, right. Remember that clock was a landmark for many years.
And who tap danced at Virginia Kelly's studios in the Mode, okay?
Yeah, I took tap dancing lessons there. Yeah. No. Any other memories? Over here, okay.
Vivian Zeke worked for a long time at
Barrett's, yes.
And she's the one that named the Steelman.
Aha, okay. Vivian Zeke. Bob?
Who was the quarterback on the football team?
Yeah, I was. That's why I remember the record being undefeated. I got hit too many times. The memory is failing.